The 5 Stages of Time Travel. Book 1. Denial. By Joshua D.D. Peterson. Prologue. You are wrong. I do not believe you, I said sternly. I sat in a soft leather chair, staring at the doctor, not hearing his words. His statement caught me off guard and my brain turned off from the shock. He told me the brain tumor was growing. The seizures were going to continue to get worse and my episodes would get more confusing. I snapped back to our conversation and interrupted the man. I do not care about this body. How do I get back to Ezra? I slammed my hand onto the surface of his desk in rage and knocked the papers onto the ground. I noticed today's date on a piece of paper. It looked like lab results. The date read May 19, 2007. I have 5 years to stop the end of the world and I just want to keep traveling through time. I was holding back tears. We have been over this, Michael. You are not traveling through time or being reborn in the past. You are dying, the doctor said. He got up and forced me back into my seat. I don't know what's real anymore, Jamal, I said sadly. I buried my head in my hands and bawled. I know, Mikey, but trust me. We are trying to find a way to remove it, safely, Jamal said. I grabbed a tissue and wiped the snot from my face. My eyes landed on a plaque with Jamal's full name on it. Dr. Jamal Glutenstein. It read. I looked my old friend up and down. I nearly laughed at how silly of a man he really was. Jamal was a curious man. He wore a loosely fitting button-up shirt which was half untucked from his denim jeans. He wore large thick glasses. He had the most majestic chestnut brown afro. I have known him since I was 25 years old. It's funny to think that he was my father's #1 enemy. A sharp pain shot through my head. I swayed in my chair. Mikey, stay with me. Are you okay? I barely heard him ask. The room was spinning. I braced myself and replied, yeah, I am still here. I broke down crying again. I wanted nothing more than to return to my dream where I had fallen in love with Noah's unknown daughter, Ezra. I think you should return to your room and rest, Jamal said. He pressed a button and a team of soldiers with machine guns and tactical gear entered the office. There were 7 people in the unit, and they all aimed their guns at me. I sighed and blew my nose into another tissue. I looked at my old colleague sadly and raised my hands. I got out of my seat slowly and 2 nurses came into the room. One nurse was young and cute. Her name was Rachel. The other nurse was a large Russian woman whose bedside manners could use improvement. This way, Michael. Let us get you your medicine and you can settle into bed, Rachel said. She reached her hand out to grab mine. I heard all the guns cock in unison. We exited Jamal's office and entered a long corridor into a secret underground bunker. We passed multiple security doors as we walked deeper into the complex. The entire time the members of the Navy SEAL team were watching me. We weren't in America, but Uncle Sam wanted to keep tabs on me. It made sense. I only fused with God and accidentally learned how the world ends in a few years. The only problem is, I can't remember how it happens. I only know it happens in the year 2012. My old man was one of the original scientists who pushed for the CERN project. It was his obsession with his work that made him leave me and my mom. It was also his work that kept him from adopting me when my mom died. I was only 14. I ended up moving in with my uncle. We just existed together, never really engaged or talked with each other. I did not have a lot of ambitions in life. I worked a dead-end retail job and never really felt like applying myself. I was highly intelligent though. When my dad died, a private investigator tracked me down and gave me my father's scientific journal. I learned the truth of his research. He was searching for the God particle. He believed it was an actual physical anomaly that should not exist but somehow does. He believed God, the religious deity, was a simple molecule. It was outlandish, but his findings had kind of made sense. He theorized that it alone was responsible for life forming on this planet. Ironically, this is where I first heard about Jamal. He was the same age as me and he was a prodigy in theoretical physics. He was a mathematical genius. He spoke multiple languages and he was the bane of my father's existence. I could not help but laugh as I read my father's notes about Jamal. My dad made him sound like a punk who was always poking holes in my dad's theories. Jamal was also responsible for multiple delays in the CERN project. Naturally, my father's hatred for Jamal meant we were destined to become best friends. My father had also left me a fully paid scholarship under the conditions that I could pass entrance exams and get into a top-tier university. The second condition was I had to continue his work. Jamal was taking a semester to learn 4 years of Nordic history. He often mumbled about a boy and a wolf who needed his help. We ended up rooming together during this time. It was because my dad's journal that he ended up joining with me on the CERN project. It was such an accomplishment when construction got approved. I was out touring the woods in Geneva, Switzerland, mapping in my mind where the tunnel would go. When the incident happened, Jamal says it was just my first seizure, but I feel like I connected with the God particle. In a single convulsing moment, all of time and space, the history of everything, beginning and end, flashed in my mind. The experience made me develop the tumor and it could kill me any day now. I experience seizures on a regular basis, and that's where things get weirder. I didn't notice it at first, but when I have a seizure, I fall unconscious for a period. I experienced the most realistic dreams during this time. At first the dreams were simple. I was adrift in a vast war motion. The taste of the salt on my lips was constant and refreshing. I felt safe and peaceful. I swam freely without a care or fear in my mind. Every time I had a seizure, I had the same dream. As the seizures got more violent, the length of time I was unconscious for also increased. The longer I was unconscious, the weirder my dreams got. They began to blur my grasp on what was real. I thought I had been swimming along in this vast ocean. But I did not swim, I was afloat. It was not until I formed eyes that I realized what had been happening. I was being reborn. I was inside a uterus, slowly and torturously for months. I would have to watch myself reform from a tiny blob. My dreams never lasted long enough for me to be delivered, but I was afraid that way is approaching. I noticed the relations to what was happening. It took me a long time to get the courage to speak to Jamal about it. I was in denial for months, both about the dreams and the seizures. After being brought into this maximum security underground base near CERN, I had my worst episode yet. I was unconscious for a half hour. Jamal had said that strange things were happening to my body while I was unconscious. He was as worried to talk to me about my medical stuff as I was about my idea, that I was being reborn. I was being forced to watch my body form inside of a uterus every time I had a seizure. Jamal was also worried to talk to me about my physical anomalies. He told me the truth right away about the weird thing my body would do while I was away. While I am unconscious, my brain is 100% dead. My body should not be able to function. However, it moves and breathes on its own. It can sit up in bed and slowly look around the room. Jamal described it as like watching a barely programmed robot after being powered on for the first time. I was also going through the stages of grief and was assigned a very special therapist, Dr. Jennifer Glutenstein, another colleague I went to university with. That is also where Jamal and she met. She and I got along well, and it was easy for me to open to her in our sessions. She was the only person to entertain the idea that my dreams were actual examples of time travel, other than basically being held hostage and poked and prodded, psychologically manipulated and sometimes borderline tortured. This fake hospital wing was genuinely trying to help me. I appreciated the friends I had there. I really could not ask for a better way to die. They kept me comfortable. I was basically with my family. I wanted to do everything I could to remember. I just had to deal with emotions and go on the journey of coming to terms with dying. This is the story of how I, Michael A. Falen, discovered the God particle and accidentally ended the world, while simultaneously accidentally creating it and guiding the events of its history, all while simply going through the 5 stages of grief. You are going to want to be a fish in a bowl for this story. Swim back and relax.